And now, it's story time with your host, Carl Childers.
That Wheatley boy, Frank, he gave me a book the other day. It's about this feller that's all lit up with chasing this big old white whale named Moby Dick. I ain't never heard of Moby Dick before. Mr. Bill Cox said it sounded like something he caught when he was in that Navy down in the Philippines. I reckon he got it off in a yo-yo. But that wasn't in this book. I can tell you about it if you want me to.
Yeah.
All right, then. I got it all prepared. I was hoping you'd say yes. Well, sir, back in olden times there, this boy, he wanted to be a sailor on this whaling ship called the Pequod. His name was Ishmael. His roommate was this native feller named Queequeg. They used a lot of Q's and names back then. This Queequeg, he's all tattooed up like one of them loose, whorish women on the MTV. But he was good-natured for a native feller. He was funny ha-ha, not funny queer, which is good because they was bunkmates. Get it? The chief mate, he's this feller named Starbuck. He was one of them Quaker fellers like that old lady on the oatmeal box. That Starbuck, he didn't stay in whaling long. He give it up to open a coffee shop. Did right well with it, too, from what I understand. And that captain, he was a feller called Ahab. Only Ahab I ever hear tell of was that Arab in that song. But that had a camel in it instead of a whale, so I don't reckon they's no relation. This Ahab, he had one eye, he's missing a leg. Seems he and old Moby Dick got into a scuffle a spell back, and Ahab come out on the short end of it. He wasn't too tickled having to hobble around on a broomstick where his leg should have been. I figured that's why he was plumb eat up with getting even with him. Mr. Bill Cox, he said Captain Ahab was the very first whale thug. Who can't be topical. Well, sir, old Captain Ahab there, he told all them fellers that he's just going on a regular old whale hunt. And they all said, all right then. But they didn't have an inkling that they was really going looking for old Moby Dick. So they sailed off summers to find that big white whale. I don't rightly know how you go about looking for a whale. It seems to me big old white one wouldn't be too hard to pick out of a crowd. Mr. Bill Cox said it's probably like picking out John Boy at one of them hippity-hop concerts. So they sail around the ocean there, stopping and talking to other boats, asking the captains if they'd seen Moby Dick and whatnot. Every story was worse than the last, telling Ahab about seeing ships getting squashed and sailors getting head up. This didn't bother Ahab none. It just made him see red. Them other fellers, they was a mite put off seeing how they might get head up and all. But what was they gonna do? It was a long swim home. Well, sir, they was pulled over having some biscuits and mustard for lunch when all of a sudden old Moby Dick shoots up out of the water. Oh, Ahab, he just about threw mud. He cut everybody's lunch short and they took out after him. Old Moby Dick, he's having a good bit of sport with him, bumping into the ship and splashing water on him like he's at SeaWorld. See that Moby Dick? He was pretty old in whale years. He had a lot of aches and pains that made him a mite coarse with folks who messed with him. Mr. Bill Cox said he's like an underwater Robert D. Rayford, but with a smaller blowhole. I don't rightly know what he meant by that. Mr. Bill Cox laughed a good bit at it. Well, them sailor fellers, they commenced to chucking harpoons at old Moby Dick. Some folks calls them spears, I calls them harpoons. Before too long, Moby Dick was on the ropes. Ahab was moving in for the kill. About that time, a sailing ship cut him off. It was the SS Peta. They was cutting them harpoon ropes and screaming, "What you trying to kill Moby Dick for? What you trying to kill Moby Dick for?" Had to work it in there somewhere. Moby Dick, he shook off them harpoons and started swimming away. Ahab was plumb put out about it. Then all of a sudden, like, Moby Dick circled around, come up out of the water and landed on the SS PETA. Killed him. Moral of the story, don't go poking your nose in other folks' squabbles. You might wind up getting squashed by a white whale. The end.
Storytime is brought to you by Hargrave's Potted Meat Product. Chock full of peckers and lips since 1933.
And you thought it wasn't going to have a happy end.